Welcome, Karen. Thanks for being on our podcast today, especially after your epic ride, the cycle for humanity. Um,
Thanks for having me.
yeah, it's great to have you. So, some people will know you, and some people might not know you. So, it'd be great if you could introduce yourself and say a little bit about who you are and how cycling and adventure are part of your life.
So I seem to like to explore quite a lot, and I like to move my body quite a lot. So, I was on the Paralympic hand cycling team for about 13 or 14 years, and that was a bit unexpected, if I'm honest. I never really thought I was someone who liked competition very much, but I do love to be outdoors. And so I was paralyzed when I was 21 and I had to find new ways to adventure and do things. So hand cycling became one of the things that I could do quite easily on my own without needing complicated equipment or teams of people. So that's become one of my big passions. So yeah, but I love to just be outside really in nature, and it's that connection with nature and the people that you get to share those experiences outdoors with that probably motivates me the most. So through 13 or 14 years in the competitive world of Paralympic hand cycling was fun because I got to be outdoors a lot and it was a huge learning ground. But there were elements of competition that I didn't necessarily enjoy. So yeah.
Mm, yeah. What was it like being on a pro team?
How do you answer that? I mean, I suppose one of the things that appealed to me was that I've always been like quite broad brush at lots of things. I kind of like a lot of things. I'm reasonably good at a reasonable amount of things. And I never really had that kind of focus to go really deep on one thing. I remember someone that who ran a hostel in a place that I used to go and sometimes go with my mountain bike or with my sit ski. And he said, I wonder how good you'd be if you actually focused on one thing. And it kind of stimulated me to have a bit of an experiment. And I thought, well, I'll, the next Paralympics is going to be in London, and it'd be really cool to try and be at a games in my own country. Like, I wonder. I discovered that hand cycling had been chosen as a sport to be in the Paralympics there. So it was more like an experiment, really, just to see what it'd be like to focus for a little while and try and do one thing really well. But it's probably not my natural nature to focus on doing one thing well. I'm definitely more of a, maybe some might argue that there's this kind of concept of late stage diagnosis of ADHD, but I'm not sure. I definitely like variety and having a broad amount of experiences. So being on a team it required a lot of discipline, it required a lot of commitment, it required a lot of routine, probably things that I don't naturally necessarily I quite like every day to be different. I kind of thrive on adventure and diversity and the unexpected. So to actually enter into more than a decade of sort of a committed routine life was kind of challenging for me. But at the same time, it was incredible to be in this place where I was learning so much about how we can help our body achieve more than we ever imagined it could. I think most of us have a doubting voice inside us that thinks we're never going to be good enough to do well in a race, let alone win a race or go to an Olympics. And I am no different. So I had all of those voices. So it was a really amazing learning ground for learning about the body, the mind, our emotions, and how to sort of manage them to get the optimal result out of ourselves.
Mm, yeah, yeah. Um, I mean, it's interesting what you say about not being into routine because I just started to get to know you as you were coming up to 2012. And one of the things that struck me was how committed you were and are to sessions. Like you would do sessions really late at night to get them in. You rarely missed sessions. So
Yeah,
it's
that's true as well. I mean, I suppose you come in with a filter on yourself to start with. So I might have, you never know who you're comparing yourself to because you don't know what other people are like in terms of commitment. I mean, one of my big values is doing what I say I'm going to do. So that doesn't matter whether that's showing up for myself or showing up for another person. So
Mm.
I was really good at not missing sessions and being committed. And sometimes to my detriment, I think sometimes it's a good idea to miss a session because your body's screaming out at you, but it needs some recovery. And I didn't necessarily always give my body chance to do that. Um, and even now, I still find it hard to really back off. And to me, if I've not done something for 3 days, it just feels like an eternity of not being physical. I think I've done two little rides this week, sort of an hour each, and I literally feel like I don't even know what my bike is anymore because I've left it for so long. And then I realize other people have months and months where they don't do anything. So, yeah, it's all relative.
Yeah, yeah. And I think definitely, what you say about liking to move. I think you once said to me that you were a nomad.
Well, I think someone else saw me once and said I belonged to some Finnish nomadic tribe just from how I looked, but I don't know. But
Oh.
I definitely have this sense of like, I remember when I was a kid and say revising for exams at school, I always just like moved rooms to revise. I might lie on the floor in the hallway, or then I'd like go and lie in the garden, or I get my mountain bike and put all my revision in a pannier and then head off onto the moors in Yorkshire and just keep stopping and lying in the heather and revising for 15 minutes and then ride a bit more. So that seems to be like my preferred way of learning and moving through the world. I'm not very good at just sitting at a desk still, kind of, in one room all day. And I find my energy just feels really stagnant and I don't feel my best and I don't feel like I can bring my best if I'm working like that. So
Yeah, yeah. Something about the movement that helps.
yeah, I guess I'm a kinesthetic learner. If I'm moving my body, it's the same with spending time with people. I much prefer to spend time with people where you're kind of moving together somehow. Like my recent discovery is I could like garden with people, and that's a really nice way to chat. And maybe I've got a productivity gene as well that likes to feel like something's moving towards something, or you're kind of creating something along the way.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. And I think the being in nature as well. Um, that's something that really comes through, I think, in certainly in my experience of you, someone who cares about nature and loves to be in nature.
Yeah, but I mean, I think to me it's the lifeblood of all of us in a way. It's like I can't speak for everybody, but for me, it feels like if I've not been in nature, if I'm not spending time outdoors at some point every day, it just feels like some kind of life force is being cut off from me.
Yeah.
And I suppose I'm increasingly passionate about how we can, yeah, respect and protect the nature around us, not just in practical ways, but even just that emotional connection that we have to it and what it there's so much evidence coming out now about the positive effects of nature, both on rates of healing in hospitals, right through to the psychological effects of nature and gentle movement and blue spaces and how being in forests can actually strengthen our immune systems and like stimulate our certain immune cells to grow bigger. So I think there's so much about nature that we're starting to gather evidence for and understand, but maybe explains to me why I've always enjoyed spending so much time in it.
Yeah, yeah. Um, um, you sort of covered quite a lot when you were talking about the Paralympic journey there, and one of the things you mentioned was about learning about your body and learning about your mind as well. Um, and I think it's easy for someone who just meets you maybe one time to think, oh, this is a really positive person, and that comes easily for you. But actually, what you mentioned there is that you had to really work hard to sort of get your mind in the right place because, like most of us, not many of us wake up thinking, do you know what? I'm amazing at this. It's just
No.
a breeze.
Yeah, I mean, I sometimes think that that whole journey through elite sport and Paralympics was really a lesson in managing the mind as much as it was showing up to do physical training sessions. Um, and I think all athletes will say that the mind is so vital to how we perform. We can have the best trained body in the world, but if we show up with the wrong mindset when it matters, then we're probably not going to pull off the thing that we need to. So it hasn't come naturally to me. I mean, I must have a certain part of me that's reasonably good at reframing difficult situations. Like, I guess, becoming paralyzed is certainly not a desirable thing for anybody in their life, particularly. And it's not like I was leaping for joy that I was paralyzed, but it probably didn't take me too long before I was thinking, okay, yeah, this is, I can't change that. And a common saying amongst athletes is control the controllables. I mean, I tried to change it. I did lots of physio and lots of other things and explored lots of possibilities about how a paralyzed body might actually be re-stimulated and reconnect sort of neural networks in the body. But fundamentally, I think we have to focus on what we can do and not what we can't do, and the possibilities of what we might be able to do rather than the limitations that can really hold us back. So I think my journey with both paralysis and elite sport has taught me a lot about those things. And I just find it, yeah, a fascinating area, and it never stops. I mean, all the time we're we're dealing with our inner landscape and the thoughts that come up for us and how they can inhibit us, limit us, hold us back. It's core to being human, I think. So it's a vast topic, and I think everyone's so individual that but there's some certain generalizations we can make. But definitely my Paralympic journey taught me to be kinder to myself and to have much kinder self-talk. In the beginning, I would like chastise myself that I'd gone out training and I was rubbish and I was never going to make it. And who did I think I was? And I should just give up now. And then I realized, well, that's not what I would say to someone I really loved and cared about, or to my best friend. Why would I say that to myself? Like, how do I become my own best cheerleader? And I think we've all got a huge role we can play in that, of actually just being kind to ourselves and knowing the difference, knowing ourselves enough that we know when we're being perhaps lazy or have an inclination to that, or when we know when we really need to rest, and when we know, just like navigating that in a kind, compassionate way with yourself, but at the same time, knowing that you've got this dream or this vision or this thing you're working towards, and actually you do need to show up and put some hard work to get there. So,
yeah, it's a tricky balance, isn't it? I find myself saying that a lot in comments or to people that I'm working with. Be gentle with yourself, be kind to yourself, because I think it's a default position for a lot of people, isn't it, to chastise, to be the critical parent.
yeah, it is a fine line, because you do need to be really good to get really good at something. You do need to put the hours in, you do need to put the practice in, and you do need to be committed and to really try hard. But if you're always speaking to yourself badly, I mean, for me, it was less about not showing up and doing the training, but more about how I spoke to myself through it. So if I came back from a session and had not done very well or had not achieved a power target, for example, then I started to change my inner story from like, you're terrible, you're rubbish, to, well done for getting out today. You put in a good effort, you did the best that you can today, and that can improve. Just keep turning up and doing your best. And, I think it's consistency and commitment that pay off, rather than any one particular day or one particular race being the one that defines everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Although interestingly, that's usually the thing we remember. We remember that one day or that session, and that sort of then features large in our memory of what fitness is about, or your measure for our fitness. But the reality is one day.
But I mean, then that's the whole of the conversation, is how do you show up for that one day that really matters, like if it's Olympic Games, and actually try and be in your best form possible for that day, when every other day of the year it feels like it's a lottery. You're not really sure whether you're going to feel good or not, but there are certain things in our control that we know we can manage that can help us show up and be in the best form possible on any particular day that we need to be.
Yeah. And you did do that. You did that in 2012, and you got your silver and silver and I want to say
silver and sort of a bronze. We shared a bronze medal.
The bronze, didn't you, with Rachel?
And then again in Rio. I mean, I suppose that I did, and this is thanks to John Hampshire coaching, but I definitely did seem to do quite well at making it, showing up when it mattered, like actually putting in the performance when it mattered, which I know some other people didn't seem to manage. Like, I have competitors who were much more consistently getting good results than me in other races, but then when it came to like the big one, they maybe didn't pull it off, and then I did. So yeah, there's lots of nuances in there to work with, and again, I think a lot of that was around not just the physical process, but the mindset, and doing a lot of thought about what will I do if. Like, I'll never forget a moment in the London Paralympics where in the time trial, so you're at 1 minute intervals, and basically you're trying to catch the riders ahead of you, who would typically have slightly slower times than you, and not be caught by the riders behind you who would on average have slightly quicker times than you. So the thing is, if someone passes you, then you mentally, there's an inclination to be like, oh, I've blown it. I'm really slow. Someone's made up a whole minute on me already. I'm doing terribly. What's the point? And kind of mentally giving up. And actually, the American rider did catch me in the time trial. But because I'd done this mental process of what will I do if someone catches me, and I decided to reframe it as a trigger to motivate me to like dig even deeper if I had anything left in me rather than give up, it actually kicked me into racing better, and and that's what helped me get the silver medal. Like, certainly if I'd given up, I wouldn't have got the silver medal.
Yeah,
So again, that was all the mental prep and the kind of anticipation of what you might do in a certain scenario that really helped.
yeah, yeah. And what you tell yourself about that situation.
Yeah, I mean, another one, the London Games, in the warm up, I had a blowout in one of my rear tires whilst I was doing the warm up on a static, on a turbo type of trainer. And that might have just thrown you off your game completely. You suddenly got a puncture like minutes before you go into the start line. But I'd actually imagined that scenario. So I just stayed calm. I carried on doing my warm up as my tyre was being changed by the mechanics, and it didn't throw me off at all. But it was only through that, like, the mental rehearsal, I think, is so vital. And that was a huge part of all of my professional racing career, was doing a lot of work with my mind, mental rehearsal, repetition, visualizing, hypnotic recordings that kind of had me racing my best race and winning images and all this stuff that we talk about in sports psychology, that actually when you put it into practice and really embody it is, I would argue, is extremely powerful.
mm, mm. And I mean, the paracycling was one thing, but you're also a para-triathlete champion.
Yeah, so I did, I think because I like variety, I did end up diverting a little bit into trying some triathlon. I guess I always experienced triathlon as being like an adventure in an hour, because most para triathlon distances were sprint, and they were kind of not much more than an hour long for the whole race. But in that hour, you've been in the water somewhere, like maybe the sea or a lake, and that's like a proper adventure. And I was terrified of dark water and open water swimming, and I'm not naturally a good swimmer. And then you've had this cycle, and then you've like hopped in a racing wheelchair and done a run. So in a short space of time, you've got a lot of different experiences, and I guess that really appealed. And I also liked the new challenge of trying to learn new skills, like I think learning new skills and seeing progress is extremely rewarding. It's actually something I was reflecting on this week, because I was just noticing that I'm feeling a little flat. And then I was like, what's missing? And then I thought, I'm not actually learning a new skill at the moment. I'm not studying. It's like my learning is not obvious. I've got nothing that I'm tracking progress with. And I'm missing that. And I think it does, well, I know there's lots of neuroscience that shows that growth, where the level of challenge is stretching us a little bit into what's called the flow zone, then we get a lot of positive neurochemistry from that, like the dopamine and the serotonin and things that help us feel good and actually make us quite happy. So I need to have a look at that right now and see where my new learning and progress and that kind of side of things might come from.
Quite excited to see what you do next, because I think all the time I've known you, you've always been learning and doing something, psychology, and then these various therapies that you do and practice as well with people.
I know, like maybe what I need to do for a little while is actually just not be always seeking to learn and grow. Like, I feel like it is important, but I'm also wondering, what do we what do we actually learn and grow when we're not seeking learning and growth? Maybe there's something in that I need to discover. So we'll see.
Yeah, something in the stillness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exciting times ahead. Let us know. The other thing I was thinking as you were talking about moving, you were describing this way you used to revise, when you were doing your GCSEs and whatnot, was how on earth did you write all those books when you need to move so much?
That is a bit of a fascination to me. So sometimes I think, oh, I maybe have got this kind of like hyperactive part of me, but I am actually when I find something that I'm really committed to and interested in, then I am good at sitting still and really thrashing something through and taking time with something. So yeah, but again, I wouldn't sit all day and write all day, or it would take me years to write a book, and I would be really focused for a couple of hours each day potentially. I tend to find getting up in the morning when my brain's fresh and like I maybe got ideas I'm excited about writing about, then I found that a good time to do that. But yeah, comes a certain point where the ants are in my pants again and I can't sit at my laptop any longer. But so yeah, maybe some people write a book in the space of a few months or even weeks, and whereas for me it's more of a few years kind of process.
Mm, mm. But I think, going back to the routine thing, I think just having the routine of saying, right, this is my productive time. So I'm just going to spend this time every weekday on my book. It does eventually happen, I guess. Says the woman
Yeah,
who's never written a book.
routine. Yeah, but you'll know this too. Routine is powerful. Like it doesn't necessarily take up a lot of time. If you do something for half an hour every day, an hour every day, whatever you choose to dedicate to it, you can make a lot of progress
Mm.
just with that simple commitment. And it makes you feel good about yourself when you commit to something and show up for yourself. I think it's a really important building block of sort of feeling good self-worth. And yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think for people who have this sort of decision fatigue, if the routine's there, you don't have to make a decision because you just know that at 10 o'clock, this is what we do.
Yeah, I mean, I've never had it that structured, but there is all the stuff about Steve Jobs, isn't there, where he doesn't have any other clothes in his wardrobe. He just has like 10 of the same. There's no decisions to make about what you're wearing. And
Yeah.
yeah, it is interesting. I've got a few social things to go to later this week, and I'm like, oh God, what am I going to wear? Because I've got so used to just putting on the same old stuff and getting on my bike or going in the garden, or now we don't have to show up for work events. I kind of forget where anything smart might be. It's like, oh no.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I've been away from home, and normally I just slob about in like my sweaty running gear until I need to put a t-shirt on in a situation like this. But I've been with other people, so I've had to actually get dressed properly. Strange. The other thing that we haven't mentioned is the land speed record, which you got in, was that 20, I want to say 2018.
I think it was 2018. Yeah. Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah, that was a cool project. That came from an engineering project with Liverpool University, who I seem to have a really nice ongoing connection with, and they were building a sort of cycle aerodynamic egg hand cycle to take out to Nevada, to the Nevada desert, to this town in the middle of nowhere called Battle Mountain, where there's a long straight road across the desert, and the local police cooperate to shut the road down for sort of periods of time where people then race these velocipedes, they get called. So basically bikes that are in these eggshell type fiberglass covers or carbon fiber shells that are very aerodynamic. So yeah, I was part of that project, and in 2018, myself and the male rider Ken, we shared the same velocipede, and we both managed to break world records in it. So we shared that. And we actually went back last year to try and with a different team of student engineers who'd had a go at rebuilding the bike and were trying to improve on the record, but yeah, unfortunately, none of us improved. I think
weather was against you, wasn't it, on that day?
Well, there's a lot of factors. I mean, I probably wasn't quite as fit, although lovely John Hampshire, my coach, would suggest that I was in a equivalent kind of place to the previous time. But yeah, the road was extremely rough, actually. It deteriorated in quality and not being resurfaced, so none of the teams were getting world record times, and the conditions weren't great. And yeah, collectively things didn't really work out very well with the engineering or the road surface or all factors put together. But it was again, when we fail at something, I'm not saying that was failure, but it was, when we don't necessarily get the outcome we want, it's also a great opportunity to learn and figure out. And I think this team of students that year learned so much, possibly more than the previous team, about lots of different factors, resistance and the aerodynamic flow around the bike, and we were trying out different tails for the back and looking at laminar flow and all this stuff, which I was learning about as well. But it was a fantastic experience and a great learning curve.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It looked good fun. Yeah, I was at home looking after the dog, but living it through Instagram.
Seriously.
Yeah, vicariously, definitely. I mean, I think from my perspective, you're an incredibly successful athlete, and I think that's a unique combination of your ability to sort of manage your mind and work with your mind, and raw talent, and also just the fact that you're committed. As you said, once you're committed to do something, you'll do it. But I just wondered, because you post Paralympics, post all this, how does all that fit? How do you sort of lean into a different relationship with sport from the one that you've maybe had before?
Yeah. So, I mean, I would always dispute the raw talent thing. I think it does come down to basically just hard work, commitment, and a lot of work on the mind as well. Um, who knows? But yeah, my relationship with the bike changed a lot when and I resisted retiring from professional sport for a long time. Um, I guess when it's become part of your habit and part of your identity, it's really hard to leave something behind because you're unsure and maybe a little bit scared even of what's next and what that will mean for next. But of course, there has to be a next because we can't all stay at the top end forever. Physically, it was definitely taking its toll on me, and my body was begging for some respite. I think after sort of 13 years of just hammering my body so much. And it was really hard to leave. And I think there was a lot of fear there for me. But I was at a race in Belgium actually when I decided to retire, and it suddenly became so obvious. It was like, this is now actually self-abuse. To be honest, at the time I was waiting for a surgery for big rocks that had grown in my bladder, like these huge stones. Um, I was full of infection. It's like my body was literally screaming at me to stop. And at that level, there isn't a lot of opportunity to stop because there's always another target and always another performance, and there was no opportunity for respite with the targets I was being set by British Cycling. So actually, I finally took the decision, yeah, it's time to step back. And at that moment, it suddenly felt so clear and so joyful to make that decision for myself. And I've never regretted it, if I'm honest. I did enjoy that career while I had it, but what what happened for me is that I got really stale and stagnant. Like it's almost like I wasn't learning anything anymore, and it just became this pressured place to be instead of a joyful place to be where you're expanding and growing and learning as a person. And that was always the motivation for me. So after a while, that disappeared. It's like I'd literally I think I'd lifted every stone I could imagine from bike design and aerodynamics of the bike right through to the mind and the body and every other aspect. And I think I'd just reached the end of the road with it, and it was time to let go and yeah, enter the world again with curiosity and an ability to adventure again.
Mm.
So I suppose a lot of people ride a bike or do a sport to that level to get to an Olympics I'm not sure what lots of different motivations for it, but for me, it has always been about movement and nature and connection. So the bike hasn't gone away for me. I still ride it basically just about every day.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of the different bikes now. I've got an off-road bike with a battery, which means I can go on some amazing off-road adventures and onto beaches and other places. I still don't like that as much as just my manual bike that gives me that really great physical experience. But yeah, it's become much more, the bike for me now has become much more about a place to connect with other people, with nature, with landscapes, take journeys, have adventures. It is also part of every day as a routine and a way to just like connect with those things locally where I live. And I use it quite often as a transport means. There's nothing I love more than having a motivation to go on a bike ride, like going to pick something up or drop something off or stopping at the post office and delivering my letters or, I really like it when you can use the bike as a means of travel that has purpose and meaning in it. So I'm always looking for that as well as just going on a bike for the sake of going on a bike.
Mm, mm. And you still do these big adventures, which has always been in and amongst, haven't they, throughout all the time I've known you, there's always been some adventure on the horizon or something that you're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, I love journeys and I love the adventure that comes with taking a bicycle journey. And I love the way that you can see a landscape and meet people from the bike because you're actually meeting it in a much more raw, real way than if you're kind of getting out of a car with smoked glass windows. And I don't know I don't have that kind of car, but you know what I mean? It's just you're just much more connected with the people and the places that you travel through. And I like doing journeys with purpose. So, if I'm fundraising for something, that helps give me extra motivation that there's a bigger meaning behind it or telling a story of some kind. So, yeah, this year has been incredible. I think a lot of people think I've got some massive list of things I'm trying to do, and I really don't. It's all quite organic and just emerges. But February, March saw me being fortunate enough to try out a new bike by Inspired Cycle Engineering. It's their first commercially produced hand bike, or hand trike, should I say, and getting to take it on a journey across a frozen lake in Mongolia, which was incredible with a group of women called Women on a Mission, who are also fundraised for a charity called Women for Women International. And we had some refugees as part of our group, and that was really special experience. And then just as you say, last week I got back from this other journey called A Cycle for Humanity, which was riding from a youth conference in Germany, 1,500 kilometers to Rome. And there was a combined purpose there. It's Rome and Italy that nominated the bike for the Nobel Peace Prize on a number of occasions in various facets. Originally, the bike was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, and then it was some Italian MPs that nominated the Afghan women's cycling team for a Nobel Peace Prize as well. And I just think it really deserves winning one. I don't know that an object, doesn't win the Peace Prize, but it inspired me that we should ride to Rome with that story of how powerful the bike is as a means of peaceful connection.
Mm.
And so we also raised money for people with spinal injuries in a hospital in India so that they can get vital surgeries that will help them live lives more freely. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, definitely something
So
close to
it went from minus 45 Celsius in February in Mongolia to plus 45 in Italy. And I think my paralyzed body is going, what on earth? Because when you're paralyzed, you can't actually regulate your body temperature. So below my chest level, I can't sweat, and I also can't retain heat. So yeah, this year has been a bit intense on the temperature exploration front.
You've definitely put your body through the paces, shall we say. Definitely challenge.
Yeah, and you know what? I thank it every day because I do not know. I never assume it can. This recent ride, I honestly just thought this is insane. I've never done 16 days in a row of more than 100 kilometers a day in extreme temperatures with no rest days. I really didn't know if it could, and I'm amazed at what our body does. It's almost like our ability to adapt and do things is way beyond anything we can imagine, I think. I really never rock up assuming. It's always a source of great inspiration to me that our body is much more surprising than we might imagine.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think from a coaching perspective, that's often nice to say to people because a lot of people assume they've got to do far more than they need to do to prepare for things. Whereas the body's surprisingly good at adapting with, not really needs some stimulus and some hard work, but often not the
Yeah.
amount that people think.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, I was anxious about this ride. There's 16 days of like, it was between 100 and 130k a day, which I know isn't tons for a leg bike, but it's a lot on a handbike.
yeah,
And
that's your arms doing that.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I'd done one 100k ride and two 80k rides and maybe a couple of 70ks in the 3 months prior to it. So it didn't feel like I'd done enough training to suddenly then go and do all of that. But yeah, surprise yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, years of doing multi day adventures as well. Your body does not forget those things so much. What message would you give to women out there who might be thinking about the next big thing or an adventure or something that maybe they're thinking, oh, there's no way I could possibly do that. What advice would you give them?
I would say don't let your mind get in the way as in a negative way, but if it's a really challenging thing, know why you want to do it, kind of know what your motivation is. Because that if you kind of know why you're excited about it and you can connect to that feeling, then it'll help you get through the tough times or get through the training a bit more. Um, but yeah, go for it. Enjoy the. It's easy to say enjoy the journey because it is about the journey as much as it is about the ultimate achievement of some particular goal or destination that you're trying to get to. But sometimes it's really easy. I sometimes talk about getting stuck in the gap between where we are and where we think we should be or where we want to be. And I made that mistake on various, quite often throughout my journey. And it's not a fun place to be because when you're stuck in the gap, it's like you're always focused on the lack or the absence or not being good enough. And it's not a really great way to approach it. I think it's like take it with curiosity and a sense of experimenting, live each day as it comes and each experience as it comes and enjoy those as well as the kind of, the bigger picture of where you're maybe trying to get to.
Mm, yeah. I think there's the balance, isn't there, between knowing what you want to do, and if it's something really big, you're never fully certain until you've done it, but also just being curious along the way and think, no wonder, I wonder what I can get out of my body. I wonder how I can maximize this. I wonder what my body will do today, even because not
And
all.
there's loads of great stuff about curiosity and asking those questions like, how can it get even better than this? How might I get even stronger than this? I mean, my recent ride is a great example to me because if I'm honest, on day two, we'd done 120k. The Garmin in my pocket read 46 degrees Celsius. I was completely exhausted and shaky and could barely do some just like basic things that I needed to do once we'd finished riding. And of course, my mind just went to, this is insane. How am I going to do that 14 more times? Because we've got another 14 days left.
Oh,
But then I found myself going, yeah, don't write it off. Like, I wonder how much I might recover tonight. I wonder if I drink loads of water and take my electrolytes and have a good dinner. I wonder how I'll feel in the morning. Just open up the possibilities with your questions and with your thinking rather than shutting things down. And I think everyone that does that will be surprised where it leads them.
Karen, thanks so much for taking the time today to come on. It's been a bit.
Thank you. It's been fun. It reminds me how much I love all this stuff. And I've actually got the opportunity tomorrow to do some work coaching someone on their mindset to do with their sport. And when she called me and we arranged it, I realised how excited I was about that as well. So it's a reminder to me that I should really try and get back into doing more of this kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. And just before we close, if people are interested in your books or interested in following you, how can they find you? What's the best way to?
I mean, I tend to put stuff on Instagram, so at handbike dark, handbike as it sounds, and dark with an E on the end.
Yeah.
Um, And then I've got a website, which is karendarke.com, where I intermittently put a blog, but not very good at updating it otherwise, but the books are on there somewhere.
Yeah, we'll put links to those as well in the notes so people can access them.